The wind screamed like something dying. It tore through the mountain pass with teeth of ice, shredding the darkness into swirling white chaos. Nessa couldn't feel her legs anymore. Each step was a guess, a prayer, a desperate forward collapse that somehow became movement. Her son's weight pressed against her chest, wrapped in every scrap of fabric she'd stolen during their escape. Finn hadn't spoken in hours, maybe longer. Time had stopped meaning anything except the space between heartbeats, the terrible quiet between his shallow breaths. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice cracking around frost-burned lips. The words came out in her native tongue, musical syllables that the wind stole and scattered. "Please, little star, stay with me." Her people weren't meant for cold. Their homeworld circled a gentle sun, warm oceans beneath amber skies. Her skin, normally the soft blue of deep water, had turned pale and brittle. Cracks spider-webbed across her arms, where the flesh had dried and split. Each breath stabbed her lungs with frozen knives. She'd been running for 6 days. Or was it 7? The slavers had kept them in darkness so long, she'd forgotten how to count sunlight. When the transport ship crashed during a storm, she'd grabbed Finn and ran through alien forests, across frozen rivers, up into these killing mountains, because anywhere was better than the chains. Nessa stumbled. Her knees struck something hard beneath the snow, a buried stone or fallen branch. The impact sent lightning through her exhausted muscles. She fell forward, twisting at the last second to take the landing on her shoulder, protecting Finn's fragile body. Snow engulfed them. The cold was absolute. She lay there, half buried, feeling her son's bird-light breathing against her throat. His lips had gone from blue to purple. His small fingers, usually so warm, felt like ice against her skin. "I'm sorry," she breathed, staring up at the churning sky. Snowflakes landed on her face, melting from what little warmth remained. "Mama tried. I tried so hard." The lullaby came without thought. Her mother had sung it, and her mother's mother, back through generations to the first singers beneath their ancient seas. The melody was gentle as tide pools, soft as moonlight upon water. "Sleep now, little swimmer, dream of home's warm shore. The waves will hold you gently until morning comes once more." Her voice broke on the last line. She pulled Finn closer, pressing her cheek against his forehead. If this was the end, she wanted him to feel loved. Wanted his last moment to be wrapped in her voice, her warmth, her everything. She didn't hear the footsteps. The voice came from somewhere above her, rough and deep. Holy hell! Nessa's eyes snapped open. A shape loomed through the snow, tall and broad. She saw the outline of a human nail, felt the vibration of heavy boots approaching. Terror flooded her veins with adrenaline she didn't know she still had. She bared her teeth and hissed, the warning sound rising from deep in her chest. Her free hand extended, showing the small curved claws at her fingertips. "Stay back. Stay away from my child." The human stopped moving. He raised both hands, palms forward. Hey, I'm not going to hurt you." She hissed again, louder, pulling Finn tighter. The human was speaking in standard trade, the language the slavers used. Every word felt like a threat. "Your kid," the human said slowly, carefully. "He's not breathing right." She understood those words. She looked down at Finn's face, saw how still he'd become. No. Number. No. The human moved closer, dropping to one knee in the snow. He kept his hands visible, movements deliberate and slow. He was older than the slavers who'd held him, maybe 30 seasons, with dark hair and a thick beard frosted white with snow. His eyes were brown, tired, but not cruel. "Not yet. I have something that might help," he said. He reached into his heavy coat. Nessa growled low in her throat, but she was too weak to fight, too cold to run. She watched, helpless, as he pulled out a small packet wrapped in metallic fabric. He held it up, showing it clearly, then tossed it gently across the snow toward her. The packet landed a few inches from her hand. She stared at it, confused, as steam began rising from its surface. Heat. She could feel it from where she lay. Blessed warmth radiating through the frozen air. With shaking fingers, she grabbed the packet and pressed it against Finn's chest. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then her son twitched. His back arched slightly. He coughed, a small wet sound, and dragged in a gasping breath. Nessa's heart nearly exploded with relief. She looked up at the human, her eyes wide and wild with confusion. Why? Why would he help? Your boy's still fighting, the human said. He smiled slightly, the expression softening his weathered face. But he won't last long out here. Neither will you. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Every survival instinct screamed that this was a trap, that kindness from humans was impossible. They took. They hurt. They never gave without expecting something worse in return. But Finn moved again in her arms, his fingers curling weakly against her chest. Alive. Still alive. There's a cabin about 10 minutes from here, the human continued. He pointed through the trees, toward darkness. Fire, food, warm beds. You're both welcome. Welcome. The word was strange in her ears. She'd been a slave for 2 years. Before that, a refugee. Before that, just another displaced soul when her homeworld was strip-mined to dust. No one had welcomed her anywhere. The human stood, brushed snow from his knees, and waited. He didn't grab her, didn't threaten, didn't demand. Just waited. Nessa looked at Finn's face, saw the purple slowly fading from his lips. She thought about the cold, about the darkness, about the miles of mountains still ahead with no shelter and no hope. She thought about her son dying in her arms. Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself to her feet. Her legs nearly gave out, but she locked her knees and stood. She held Finn against her chest with both arms and met the human's eyes. She nodded once. Relief flickered across the man's face. All right. Stay close. Watch your step. He turned and began walking, cutting a path through the deep snow. His steps were sure despite the darkness, like he knew every stone and tree root buried beneath the white. After a moment's hesitation, Nessa followed. Each step was agony. Her feet were numb, her legs trembling with exhaustion. The wind tore at her thin clothing, stealing what little warmth the heat packet provided. But the human moved steadily ahead as she kept him in sight, following his footprints through the storm drought. She didn't know his name, didn't know if he was truly kind, or just waiting to reveal his cruelty once they reached shelter. But Finn's breathing was slightly stronger now, and that was enough. That had to be enough. They walked through a forest of dark pines, branches heavy with snow. The human ducked under low-hanging limbs and held them aside so she could pass. Such a small gesture, but it confused her. Kindness without purpose. Help without chains attached. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, warm light appeared through the trees. A structure, small and wooden, smoke rising from a stone chimney. Windows glowed orange with FIR, EHT. The human reached the door and opened it, stepping aside. Go on. Nessa hesitated at the threshold. Every muscle tensed, waiting for the trap to spring. But the warmth rolling out from inside was real, and Finn whimpered softly in her arms, turning his face toward the heat. She stepped inside. The cabin was small, maybe 3 rooms total. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, flames dancing cheerfully. Thick rugs covered the wooden floor. Simple furniture, handmade and warm, filled the space with comfortable chaos. It smelled like wood smoke, and cooking herbs and safety. The warmth hit her like a physical force. After so many days in the killing cold, it felt wrong, impossible. Her legs gave out, and she dropped to her knees, clutching Finn. The human closed the door quickly, shutting out the storm. He moved fast but careful, grabbing thick blankets from a chest. He knelt in front of her and gently, slowly, reached for Finn. Nessa snarled and pulled back. "I need to get him warm," the human said quietly. "He's hypothermic. Please." She looked at her son's face, at the way his eyes stayed closed, at the shaking that had started in his small limbs. She looked at the human's hands, calloused but gentle. She looked at his eyes and saw no cruelty there. Against every screaming instinct, she loosened her grip. The human lifted Finn carefully, like he was made of glass, and wrapped him in layers of thick blankets. He carried the small bundle to the fireplace and settled him on a pile of cushions close to the flames. Then he tucked another heat packet against Finn's chest and stepped back. "He'll be okay," the human said. "Just needs time." Nessa crawled closer to her son, watching his chest rise and fall. The human draped a blanket around her shoulders. She flinched but didn't pull away. For the first time in 6 days, she wasn't running, wasn't freezing, wasn't waiting to die. The human moved to a small kitchen area and began heating something on the stove. The smell of broth filled the cabin. Outside, the storm howled its fury, but inside, the fire crackled warm and bright. Nessa pulled the blanket tighter and watched the strange human work. She didn't understand, didn't trust. But Finn was breathing, and that was everything. The human glanced back at her and smiled slightly. "Name's Owen, by the way. Welcome to my home." She stared at him, this Owen, this human who'd walked through a blizzard and saved them for no reason she could comprehend. And despite everything, despite the years of pain and chains and loss, something small and fragile stirred in her chest. Hope. Dawn came softly. Gray light filtered through the cabin windows, painting everything in shades of silver and blue. Nessa hadn't slept. She'd spent the entire night curled beside Finn, watching his chest rise and fall, counting each precious breath. Every hour, she'd checked his temperature with trembling fingers, terrified she'd find him cold again. But he was warm. His color had improved from deathly purple to a healthier pale blue. His breathing had steadied, deepened. Twice during the night, he'd stirred and made small sounds, almost words. Before settling back into healing sleep, Owen had kept his distance. He'd made a bed for himself in the corner, far from them, giving her space. She'd watched him through the darkness, waiting for him to approach, to reveal his true intentions. But he'd simply slept, or pretended to, his breathing slow and even. Now he sat up, rubbing his eyes. He noticed she was awake and offered a small nod. "Morning. How's the little one?" "Better," Nessa said quietly. The word felt strange in standard trade, her accent turning the syllables musical. "He is. Warmer." "Good." Owen stood and stretched, his joints cracking. He moved to the stove and began preparing something. "You must be starving." She was. Her stomach felt hollow, a gnawing emptiness she'd been ignoring for days. But accepting food meant owing something, and owing something meant vulnerability. Owen seemed to sense her hesitation. He prepared 2 bowls of thick porridge, mixed with dried berries and nuts, and placed one on the floor, halfway between them. He took his own bowl and sat at the small table, eating without watching her. Nessa stared at the food. Steam rose from it, carrying smells that made her mouth water. She glanced at Finn, still sleeping peacefully, then at Owen, who was focused on his meal. Slowly, she reached for the bowl. The porridge was sweet and warm, nothing like the tasteless paste the slavers had fed them. She ate quickly, without grace, shoveling food into her mouth like it might disappear. Owen refilled her bowl without comment. Then a third time, when she finally slowed, her stomach satisfyingly full, he spoke. "You've been running a long time." It wasn't a question. She nodded anyway. "From slavers?" Her whole body tensed. Her claws extended reflexively. "How did you know?" Owen gestured to her wrists. She looked down and saw the pale bands of scarred skin where restraints had rubbed for months. Evidence she couldn't hide. "Saw enough during the war," Owen said quietly. "Before I came here, I was. Somewhere else. Saw what people do to each other." He stared into his bowl. "Saw things I wish I could forget?" Nessa studied him with new attention. There was pain in his voice, old and deep. "What war?" "The frontier conflicts. 10 years ago." He set his bowl aside. "I was a combat engineer. Built bridges, cleared mines, tried to keep supply lines open. My partner Marcus was a field medic." His voice softened on the name. "We worked the same units for 3 years. Partner?" Owen's eyes met hers. "The person I loved? The person I was going to spend my life with?" Understanding settled over her. She recognized that particular grief, the weight of loving someone and losing them. "What happened?" "Accident during demobilization. Routine transport flight that wasn't routine enough." Owen's jaw tightened. "One moment we were planning where to settle down, the next ... He trailed off, then shook his head. "I came here 2 years ago. Bought this cabin, figured I'd live quiet. Didn't see much point in people anymore. But you saved us." "Yeah?" He smiled sadly. "Marcus would have kicked my ass if I'd left you in the snow. He was always the better person. Always saw the good in things." Nessa looked at Finn, at his small, peaceful face. "I had a partner too, Jarin. He died when they raided our settlement. He put Finn in my arms and told me to run." Her voice caught. "I ran. I did not look back. I left him dying and I ran. You saved your son. That's what he wanted, I know." Tears burned in her eyes. But knowing does not stop the guilt. They sat in silence for a while, 2 broken people sharing space in a warm cabin while the world stayed cold outside. Finally, Finn stirred. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused and confused. "Mama?" His voice was a whisper, barely there. Nessa was beside him instantly, cradling his face. "I am here, little star. I am here." Finn blinked at her, then at the cabin, then at Owen. "Where?" "Safe," Nessa said firmly. "We are safe." The boy's eyes drifted to Owen. "Who ... "His name is Owen," Nessa said, the name awkward in her mouth. "He ... helped us." Finn studied Owen with the solemn intensity only children could manage. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You are big." Owen laughed, surprised. "Yeah, I guess I am. Do you have food?" "Finn." Nessa scolded, but Owen was already moving to the stove. "I like direct questions." He prepared a small bowl of porridge, cooled it carefully, and brought it over. He offered it to Nessa, letting her feed her son. Kids got priorities. Finn ate slowly, his small body still weak, but his eyes were brighter than they'd been in days. Between bites, he asked questions. "Why do you live alone? Do you have family? What are those?" He pointed at mounted snowshoes on the wall. Owen answered each question patiently. Nessa watched him, saw how gentle he was with Finn's curiosity, how he never talked down or dismissed. This human, this Owen, was nothing like the monsters who'd held them captive. The days began to blur together. Finn's strength returned gradually. Within 3 days, he could sit up without help. Within 5, he could walk around the cabin, exploring with endless childhood wonder. He was fascinated by everything the fireplace. The hand-carved furniture, the shelves of books he couldn't read, the strange human tools Owen used for woodworking. Nessa healed too, though her wounds were slower. The cracks in her skin needed special moisture her body couldn't produce in the dry mountain air. Owen solved this by creating a humidifier from spare parts, filling the cabin with blessed dampness. He treated her frostbite with careful hands and medical supplies, never touching more than necessary, always asking permission first. She started helping around the cabin, cooking, cleaning, small repairs. Not because she had to, but because sitting idle made her feel like a prisoner again. Owen never asked for help, but he accepted it gracefully, teaching her how his stove worked, where he kept supplies, how to bank the fire at night. That they talked during these tasks. Small conversations at first, then deeper ones. She told him about her homeworld, about turquoise oceans and floating gardens, about the songs her people sang to call the dawn. He told her about growing up on a farm, about learning to build things with his hands, about nights spent stargazing with Marcus while planning impossible futures. He wanted chickens, Owen said one evening, carving a piece of wood by the fire. Finn was asleep, and Nessa was mending one of Owen's shirts with careful stitches. A whole flock. Said fresh eggs would make everything better. Would they have? Probably not. But it was nice to plan for them. He smiled at the memory. He'd make lists. Chicken names, co-op designs, what vegetables to plant. Never got to do any of it. I am sorry, me too. Owen examined his carving, a small bird taking shape in the wood. Some days I'm angry he's gone. Other days I'm just tired of missing him. Nessa set the shirt aside. Jarin used to sing when he cooked. Terrible voice, but he loved it. After he died, I could not eat for days. Every meal reminded me of his songs. What changed? She looked at Finn's sleeping form. He needed me. Grief is heavy, but children are heavier. They keep you moving forward even when you want to stop. Owen nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that. Their eyes met across the firelight. Something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. They were two people who'd loved and lost, who carried ghosts and guilt, who'd somehow found themselves sharing space in a cabin while snow fell outside. A week passed. Then another. The storm had trapped them effectively, snow piling so deep that the windows were half buried. Owen didn't seem concerned. He had supplies for months, and he showed Nessa how to ration, how to preserve, how to make do. Finn called Owen friend for the first time on the 9th day. They were building a small tower from wooden blocks Owen had carved, and when it fell, Finn laughed and said, "Again, friend? Build it again." Owen froze, block in hand. He looked at Nessa, something vulnerable in his eyes. She smiled, nodded permission for whatever he was feeling. "Okay, buddy," Owen said softly. Again. That night, after Finn was asleep, Nessa found Owen standing by the window, staring out at the moonlit snow. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For everything. For saving us. For giving us shelter. For being kind when you had no reason to be." Owen turned to face her. In the dim light, his features were soft, unguarded. "I had every reason. You needed help. That's enough. Most beings do not think that way. Most beings haven't lost everything and learned what matters." He hesitated, then added, "Having you here, having Finn here, it's reminded me why Marcus wanted those chickens. Not because of eggs, because of hope, because of building something that might last." Nessa's breath caught. She stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "Owen ... I know this is temporary," he said quickly. "I know once the snow clears, you'll need to move on. Find somewhere safer, somewhere Finn can have a real life. I understand. But until then..." He trailed off, searching for words. The morning started with teaching. Finn had discovered Owen's small collection of books and was determined to learn the strange human writing. Owen sat with him at the table, patiently pointing out letters, sounding out words. "This one is tree," Owen said, pointing. "See? To R-E-E." Finn traced the letters with one small claw. Tori, tree. He looked up, delighted with himself. "Perfect. You're a natural." Nessa watched from the kitchen area, preparing their midday meal. The domesticity of the scene made her chest ache in ways both painful and sweet. This felt like a life, like home, like something she'd thought impossible after Jaren died. Owen glanced over and caught her staring. He smiled, and she felt warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the fire. "Mama, look." Finn held up the book. "I can read cat and dog and star." "Star is your word," Owen said. "Your mama calls you little star." "In my language, it is Tessera," Nessa said. "It means the light that guides sailors home." Owen's smile softened. "That's beautiful. Jaren chose it. He said Finn would always lead us to safety." Her voice caught. He was right. My son has led me here. Finn, oblivious to the emotional weight, went back to studying his letters. Owen stood and moved to help Nessa with the meal preparation. Their arms brushed as they worked, and neither pulled away. "I've been thinking," Owen said quietly. "When the snow melts enough, I'll take you both to Millbrook. It's a settlement about 2 days' journey west. They have a council that handles refugee cases. Good people. They could help you get proper documentation, find work." Nessa's hands stilled on the vegetables she'd been cutting. "You have thought about this?" "Of course. You can't stay hidden forever. Finn needs education, medical care, other kids to play with. You both deserve more than a cabin in the mountains. This cabin has been more than enough. For now. But not forever." He paused. "Unless. I mean, Millbrook isn't far. I could visit. Or you could visit here. If you wanted." She looked at him, at the hope and fear warring in his expression. "You want us to stay close?" "I want you to be safe and free. But yeah, if that includes staying close, I'd like that." He cleared his throat. "I'd like that a lot." Nessa set down her knife and turned to face him fully. "Owen, I need you to understand something. For 2 years, I was property. I was hurt, used, told I had no value except what I could produce. Learning to trust again is—" She struggled for words. "It is like learning to walk on broken legs." "I know. Or I can imagine. I'm not trying to push, but I trust you," she interrupted. "I do not know when it happened. Maybe when you gave Finn that heat packet. Maybe when you slept in the corner to give us space. Maybe this morning, watching you teach my son to read. But I trust you, Owen Blake, and that terrifies me because trusting means being vulnerable, and vulnerable means pain." Owen's hand found hers across the counter. "It also means connection, and joy, and all the things that make life worth living. Marcus taught you that? Every day we had together." She squeezed his hand. "Then I will try. For Finn, for myself, for for us." The word hung between them, fragile and impossible and real. Nessa nodded slowly. "For us." Owen lifted her hand and pressed it against his cheek. The gesture was so tender, so full of unspoken promise, that Nessa felt tears prick her eyes. She'd thought this part of her had died with Jaren, but here it was, blooming like flowers through snow. Finn's voice broke the moment. "Are you two going to kiss?" They jumped apart. Finn watched them with the too knowing expression of a child who'd seen more of life than he should have. "We are cooking," Nessa said firmly. though her cheeks darkened to deeper blue. "Looked like kissing to me," Finn said sagely, then returned to his book. Owen laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "Kid's got good instincts. He is too smart for his own good. Wonder where he gets that from." They finished preparing the meal together. Hands brushing, small smiles exchanged, something new and precious growing in the space between them. After they ate, Owen announced he needed to check his traps and gather firewood before the next storm hit. The sky had been clear for 3 days, but he could read weather in ways Nessa was learning to recognize. "I will come with you," Nessa said. "It's cold out there. I have survived worse." Owen looked like he wanted to argue, then nodded. "All right. Finn can stay here where it's warm. We won't go far." They bundled Finn in blankets by the fire, with strict instructions not to touch the stove or open the door. The boy was already absorbed in his book, sounding out words with intense concentration. Outside, the cold was shocking after days in the warm cabin. But the sun was bright, the sky impossibly blue, and the snow had stopped falling. Everything sparkled like someone had scattered diamonds across the world. Owen led them through the forest on worn paths only he could see. He checked traps efficiently, finding 2 rabbits and resetting the mechanisms. He showed Nessa how they worked, how to approach safely, how to dispatch animals humanely. Marcus was better at this, he admitted. He had gentle hands. "Mine are too rough. Your hands saved my son's life." "So did his. He taught me field medicine. Everything I know about keeping people alive, I learned from him." They moved deeper into the forest, gathering deadfall for firewood. Nessa carried what she could, her strength returning daily. Owen told stories as they worked about Marcus's terrible jokes, about storms they'd survived, about the life they'd tried to build. "Do you think he would approve?" Nessa asked suddenly. "Of me being here?" Owen stopped walking. He set down his armload of wood and turned to her. "He'd love you. He'd say I was lucky you crashed in my forest. He'd probably try to teach Finn terrible card games and how to cheat at them. You miss him very much." "Every day. But having you here, it doesn't replace him. Nothing could. But it reminds me that life keeps happening, even when you think you're done with it." Nessa stepped closer. Snow crunched beneath her feet. "I feel the same about Jaron. He is gone, but life continues. Finn grows. And now there is—" She gestured between them. This, Owen agreed softly. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, gentle and hesitant, the kiss of 2 people learning trust again. His mouth was warm, tasting of morning tea and hope. Her breath caught as his hand cupped her face, thumb rushing across her cheek. When they parted, both were breathing hard, clouds of vapor mixing in the cold air. "I have not done this since Jaron," Nessa whispered. "Me neither. Since Marcus." Owen rested his forehead against hers. "Is it okay? Are we okay?" "We are better than okay." They stood together in the sunlit forest, holding each other while somewhere in the distance a raven called. Neither noticed the glint of binoculars, watching from a nearby ridge. Neither saw the 2 figures crouched in the shadows, studying them with cold professional interest. Jora each lowered the binoculars and checked his scanner. The signal was strong now, definitely coming from the cabin they'd watched the pair emerge from. "That's her," he said quietly. "Matches the description. The kid, too." Sen, his partner, adjusted the rifle across his back. "One human male, armed? Didn't see weapons. Probably just some hermit who doesn't know what he's sheltering. We take him out?" Jorah considered. The contract specified the alien and her child, no witnesses. But unnecessary killing drew attention, and attention complicated payouts. "Let's see if he's smart enough to walk away." If not, he shrugged. They withdrew silently, moving back to their camp a click south. They'd approach at dawn when people slept deepest, when reaction times were slowest. Professional, clean, no complications. Back at the cabin, Nessa and Owen returned with their gathered supplies. Finn had made a fort from cushions and blankets and was defending it from imaginary invaders. "The fort is unconquerable," he declared as they entered. "Is that so?" Owen set down the firewood and advanced with exaggerated menace. "We shall see about that." What followed was a laughing, chaotic battle that ended with Owen captured and Finn declaring himself king of the cabin. Nessa watched them play, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't name. This was what she'd been running toward, without knowing it existed. That evening, after Finn fell asleep, Nessa and Owen sat by the dying fire. His arm was around her shoulders, her head rested against his chest, and they existed in comfortable silence. "I want to tell you something," Nessa said softly. "Something I have not said to anyone since Jaren. You don't have to. I want to." She lifted her head to meet his eyes. "I am falling in love with you, Owen Blake. I did not think I could feel this again, but I do. It is terrifying and wonderful, and I needed you to know." Owen's breath caught. For a long moment, he just stared at her, emotions playing across his face too fast to read. Then he smiled, and it transformed him from weathered to radiant. "I'm falling in love with you too, Nessa. Have been since you hissed at me in the snow, and I realized you were the most fierce, brave person I'd ever met." She laughed, the sound surprising her. "I was terrified. So was I, still am. But it's the good kind of terrified. Then maybe this could actually work kind. Could it? Really work? I don't know. But I want to find out." They kissed again, slower this time, deeper, tasting the promise of futures they'd thought impossible. When they finally parted, both were smiling. "When the snow melts," Owen said, "we'll go to Millbrook together. Get you and Finn proper legal standing. Then we figure out the rest as we go." "Together," Nessa agreed. "Together." They sat entwined until the fire burned to embers. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. The temperature dropped as midnight approached. And in the forest, 2 hunters checked their weapons and waited for dawn. The last thing Nessa heard before sleep claimed her was Owen's heartbeat, steady and strong beneath her ear. The last thing she thought was that maybe, just maybe, happiness was possible again. She didn't know that in 6 hours everything would change. She didn't know that love, as fierce as it was, would be tested by violence. She didn't know that sometimes the past doesn't let go quietly, but she would learn. They both would, because dawn was coming, and with it, a reckoning that would determine whether their fragile new beginning could survive the hunting season.